don't own a physical copy of this game, I'm gonna play it on the Castlevania Anniversary Collection. You don't want to see it stretched to a 69 ratio? Tough. Castlevania Bloodlines takes place all over Europe, rather than just Transylvania. Countess Elizabeth Bartley seeks to resurrect her uncle, Count Dracula. The first stage is in the ruins of Castlevania, which is laid out like in the first game, but then you find yourself in Greece, you climb the Leaning Tower of Pisa, you go through this munitions factory in Germany, the Palace of Versailles, and finally a castle in the east of England. Rather than the Belmonts, this time you take control of two different characters. John Morris, or Johnny Morris as he's called in the Japanese version, the son of Quincy Morris from the novel. He wields the vampire killer. And Eric Lacarde, who has the Alucard spear. Yep, that Alucard. You can't control your jumps in midair anymore, but you can still jump on stairs, drop down from stairs, and you can even jump while you're on the stairs. A step back from the previous game, yeah, but it sure beats Ghosts and Goblins. You can also still attack in most directions. There are areas where John can swing across ceilings and Eric can do a super jump, similar to the likes of Super Mario Bros. 2. But on your adventure, you can only play as one character or the other. I kinda wish you could switch between them like in the third game. Candles and pork chops make a return. Jewels are this game's equivalent of hearts. There's something uniquely Genesis about the graphics. I love how wobbly the Leaning Tower is. There may not be a clock tower in this game per se, but this gear section fits so well on such a console. I don't know how to describe it. Not a big fan of this upside down room though. The gory atmosphere? Me likey. And the music is as upbeat as ever. If you put in a certain code in the options menu, a classic track will play when your weapon is given an extra upgrade. I like how Simon's theme plays right before you fight Dracula. But my favorite track of all in this game is Iron Blue Intention from Stage 4. Once again, you encounter familiar enemies and bosses. My favorite's the Gargoyle. When you fight him, the top of the tower spins. A close second favorite would be... that's totally Mothra. Oh my god, that's jarring. You're just walking along the hallway and these knights come running towards you. Some of the bosses in this game are really weird. Like this one who's taking a shower. This monster who's made of gears. Right before you fight Death himself, you get to have a rematch with certain bosses. Death is no match for our heroes. And Elizabeth Bartley is almost too easy. The fight with Dracula is one of the trippiest I've ever battled, especially his third form. He spits fire out of his crotch. The background is almost hypnotizing, and he distorts upon death. The only problem I have with the ending is... you don't get to see the entirety of it. Unless you're playing the game on Expert. At least in Western releases. In the Japanese version, simply titled Vampire Killer, you do get to see the full ending regardless of the difficulty setting. Surprisingly, you have limited continues. Unless you're playing on Expert, I don't feel like it's that much of a problem. While a bit harder than Super Castlevania 4, I don't find Bloodlines to be as hard as Castlevania 1 or 3. The deaths I suffered playing for this review were on me. The game is generous with checkpoints, there are a few 1-ups along the way, and the checkpoints apply even if you get a game over, so you never have to start at the beginning of the stage. Of course, there's a password system, but unlimited continues are iconic in Castlevania games, don't you think? So, which game is better? Castlevania Bloodlines or Super Castlevania 4? I'm not going to be biased here, so it really depends on what you're going for. One has more fluid controls and an atmospheric soundtrack, while the other has the familiar stiff controls and upbeat soundtrack that define classic Castlevania games. Either way, I love them both. Bloodlines is a great addition to your Genesis library for sure.